Okay, so now we're going to talk about the six types of ADHD and how that affects your executive dysfunction. So, this is for you to understand certain difficulties that you might have with executive dysfunction so that you can start to see it through that lens instead of getting frustrated, like for example, that you have to do something and you're unable to get something started and you're just like, why can't I just do it? Right? We want to start to understand it in like, okay, this is because of my ADHD and I'm not supposed to treat it in like the neurotypical way. So let me um assume that I'm gonna have difficulty, let's say starting this task and work on it in that way instead of just expecting yourself to react in a neurotypical way. Okay. So again, it's not a motivation problem. It's an executive dysfunction problem, right? So now we want to see which ones impact you in order for you to know how to manage it. So, what is executive dysfunction? So, executive functions help you start tasks, focus or shift this attention, sustain effort, right? Regulate emotions, hold information in mind, monitor and control your actions. So, if you think about it, think about your day to day, all those little tiny moments that this can impact your day, right? All the little tiny moments throughout your day that executive dysfunction can come up for you and how that impacts your nervous system and the way that you judge yourself or the way that you approach your day and yourself, right? So, again, when your executive dysfunctions go unnoticed or are continuously eh, like bypassed and you are expecting yourself to just do it, um, that's affecting you. So start to notice that and start to try and see how these come up for you in your day to day. So we're going to go over each one in detail and explain how this comes up for you in your day to day. But these are the six types of executive dysfunction in ADHD according to Brown's model. Okay, so we have number one, activation, which impacts your way of organizing, prioritizing, and activating work. Then we have focus, right? Focusing is sustaining that focus and also shifting your focus from task to task. Then we have effort, right? Regulating your alertness, sustaining effort, and then processing speed. So when somebody's talking to you, it can take you a few seconds to start to focus on that or start to process what they're saying. And that can impact your nervous system and yourself. Then we have emotion. So managing emotions, frustration, and modulating emotions. We're going to talk more in depth about emotions in further on in the program. But this is just a little bit about how it can show up for you and what to do about it. Then we have memory. So utilizing working memory and accessing recall, right? And then we also have action, which is monitoring and self-regulating your actions. Okay, so let's go into each one. So how does activation show up for you in your day to day? So it can show up in like you knowing what to do, but not being able to start it, and then being like, why can't I just start this? Or continuously thinking like, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this. But you're just continuing to like procrastinate it. You wait until panic hits. So this is when my clients come to me and they're like, "Oh, I had a job from 9 to 5 and I had my routine and it was great, yada yada. But then I don't know, I quit and everything felt hard." That's because your job provides you with structure and also pressure, right? Like when it mentions here, you wait until quote unquote panic hits. When you know that somebody's gonna be checking up on you, or that if you don't do certain things, then you're gonna lose your job. Um, that alone, that structure alone is enough support to be able to get you to do those things. But sometimes if you don't have that, it's going to be hard for you to maintain those tasks. Then you procrastinate even when it matters, and tasks feel huge before you start them. There's a big one. If you start to notice, you'll notice that throughout your day. That instead of it being like, okay, I just have to do the dishes, it'll be like 1, 2 minutes. It becomes like a bigger ordeal, bigger task than what it really is before starting it. And you rely on last minute pressure. So instead of finding the motivation or the system to start in time, you rely on procrastination and feeling pressured by yourself to do it last minute. And that's what drives your motivation to do things instead of getting motivation from other things. So, what you can do if you're like, okay, this is where I struggle, you can break tasks into very small first steps. So I call this like breaking down the task until your body says yes. So if you're like, oh, I have to shower and I have to shower, and oh my gosh, I have to shower, and then I have to like pull out my clothes, and then I have to like get my towel, and you just start to see the steps of what you have to do, and that just becomes like a big, huge task for you. Start to break down the task until your body's like, okay, we could do that. Even if it's like, I'm gonna take my feet and put them on the ground. If your body's like, okay, I can do that, then start with that, and little by little you're going to gain that motivation or inertia. Use timers, right? A 3-minute start rule, so like in 3 minutes I'm going to actually do it. Set alarms. I always say with executive dysfunction, trust yourself, not trusting yourself that you're going to do it, trust yourself that you won't, because it's like really just knowing yourself and just being like, this is not going to work for me. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to set a 3-minute timer, okay, if I'm really real with me, that timer's gonna go off and I'm not gonna listen to it, right? So then if you trust yourself that you know that's not gonna work, what can you add on to that to make it work, right? I'm gonna put my phone outside in the living room, or I'm gonna, I don't know, tell my mom to call me, or I'm gonna, I don't know, like adding extra layers to be real with yourself if you feel like it's not gonna work, until you're like, okay, yeah, this is something that I know that I'm gonna do. Pair starting with movement or music, right? Make it fun, because if you look at tasks as like monotonous and things that you don't want to do, you want to make them fun or find some enjoyment in it. um, Body double or co-work when possible or when you want to, and then start with the easiest visible step. So kind of like the first one, how can you start with the easiest little step that's going to get you to switch that focus and kind of get activated, and then make the next activation steps easier. So here the goal is to make starting easier than avoiding. Avoiding is going to be very easy for you. How can you make starting easier than avoiding? Okay. Then we got focus, right? So sustaining and shifting your attention. This might come up for you in the way that you might be hyper focusing on some things that you enjoy, that you want to focus on, right? And then, quite opposite from that, you might not be able to focus on things that you are not interested in, boring tasks. You might get distracted mid task by something that you might want to do, right? For example, with me, that's like my plans. I'll be working and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go see my plans. And then it's like, oh, wait. Um, you might struggle to switch between tasks and feel mentally scattered, like things keep popping and popping and popping in your mind. What you can do is focus on one task at a time. You can put post-its, reminders of like focus, or this is like what we're focusing on for the next 20 minutes, right? And you put it on a post-it so you can come back to it and be like, oh, right. I'm supposed to be working on this email. Um, Use visual timers, make things visual. Like so you can remember, like, oh, right, I'm supposed to be focusing on this. Work in 25-minute work blocks. So you could set even a 20-minute work block and a 5-minute break block. 20-minute work block and 5-minute break block, so that it doesn't feel like this huge task that you have to focus all the time on for hours on end on one task, because we know that's not realistic. Reduce open tabs and visual clutter. So for example, you could put your phone on do not disturb and put it like in another room, like make it hard for you to lose focus. And then match task difficulty to energy level. right? So maybe, for example, if you have the most energy in the morning, set like 25 minutes to, I don't know, an hour to work on something that's going to take up more energy. Or if you know in the evening you work best, then match that as well. So, kind of getting to know yourself in order to see how you can approach it and meet your focus needs. So, here the goal is to support attention instead of forcing it, right? We know your brain has a difficult time with focusing, and that's okay. That's okay. It's just how can I make attention way easier for me? What can I do externally and internally to get that and make it a little bit easier for me? Then we go to effort. So, effort can look like mental fatigue comes quickly, like the effort runs out fast. Tasks feel harder than expected, right? If you don't have enough like effort in you, a little task might feel bigger than what it might be. You get to burnout after a short amount of effort. You might get brain fog, right? If you don't have that structure or that external support that we're working on in this module. Um, and you might have like slow processing when you're stressed and overwhelmed, right? If something happens, and I think that stress can also come easier, right? So you can get stressed with more ease, and then that can in turn show up as slow processing. So, what can help with that is plan fewer tasks, kind of getting to know yourself, schedule recovery time. So, don't just go, go, go. Be like, okay, I know that for me, effort is difficult. So, I know that I have to schedule some recovery time so that I can keep going, right? The goal is for you to continue to do the things that you want to do. And sometimes a way to do that is to actually schedule recovery time if you struggle with that effort piece. Then alternate hard and easy tasks, or kind of like I mentioned in the slide before, do like a hard task and then get that break, right? So write that email and then go tend to your plants. I don't know, work on the handout and then go pet your dogs, right? Then define minimum effective effort. So you have to define what that is for you. What is that minimum? And also, what is that maximum? Because this varies for you, and you have to know yourself so that you know how much you can exert yourself and how little you can as well. And then normalize slower processing, right? Like if you have slower processing, instead of making it hard on yourself and just like forcing yourself to do things, try to accept that and to set up systems for you to be able to um, get through that executive dysfunction and be able to function a little bit better throughout your day to day. So, you want to protect your energy before reaching burnout because this can mean that if you aren't paid attention to this, you could be reaching burnout faster and then feeling that brain fog, brain fog. Okay, then we have emotions. So, for you, if you struggle with managing frustration and overwhelm, you might notice that you get intense frustration, but also quickly. Meltdowns or shutdowns happen more often. They might be bigger. You might be questioning, like, why am I having a meltdown? You might be hard on yourself. You might avoid tasks when you're stressed because you can't manage that stress. Okay. And then small setbacks feel huge, right? So that emotion dysregulation happens because you're so hard on yourself and you don't really understand your executive dysfunction from the ADHD lens, and you might be really hard on yourself. So a small setback might be really hard for you and it might feel bigger for you. And then emotions derail productivity. So if a big emotion happens, or even a regular emotion, it could make you have a hard time regulating that and just like focusing on your day to day because it's tough for you to regulate, right? So what we want to do is name the emotion, right? So instead of kind of trying to just like push through and white knuckle it, name the emotion and realize, okay, I'm having a tough time right now with my emotions. Let me take a break. Let me go breathe. Let me go cope with it, write journal, whatever that is, challenge them, um, and then continue, right? Regulate before problem solving. even if it's just physical, right? If you're like, I feel like antsy or I feel distracted because I'm stressed, let me go shake it out. Let me go slam my pillow, like something that can help with that energy that's in your body. And then take short reset breaks, reduce self judgment. This is the biggest one. Okay. You have to reduce that self judgment and you have to be a very self compassionate because that impacts your view on yourself, but also how you manage your emotions and how big that emotion is going to get. If you're more self-judgmental and something happens, that emotion is going to be way bigger than if you're understanding and you are able to have that self-grace to be like, okay, so I'm just having a little bit of a hard time right now, and let me try and move on. Right. So that can also impact that. And then use grounding and sensory tools as well that can help. So this can be like, okay, right now I'm feeling a lot of energy in my body. So let me go get ice. Let me go, I don't know, go into like a dark room and take a few deep breaths, right? So you want to regulate first and then decide what you need to do, right? So focus more on the emotion part and then on that next step for you. Then we have memory, right? So you're struggling with working memory and recall. So you might notice that you forget what you were about to do, right? Um, Maybe you're doing something and you lose the steps mid-task. Maybe you need constant reminders of like, what was I gonna do? Or when was that? Um, Instructions. You can understand something and be like, okay, totally, yes. And then boop, completely forget about it, right? And then relying on your brain instead of your system. So thinking, oh, I need to remember this, and then forgetting it and being like, ugh, I can't remember what it was, and then being hard on yourself with that, right? Instead of being like, okay, I need to build systems because, again, I trust that I will not remember this. So, what systems can I set up to be able to remember, right? So, what can help with this is writing things down immediately and writing everything down. I mean, this can be depending on the person, right? I have some clients that I'm like, you shouldn't be writing everything down. But if, for example, you're like, oh, I need to get toothpaste, you're not going to remember to get toothpastes. So if you have like a running list of things to get from the grocery store and just add it there the moment that you think about it because you trust that you're not going to remember, right? Use one master list. So maybe like a to do list or like a master list of, for example, things that I want to clean weekly, right? And you have, I don't know, 5 things there, 10 things there, I don't know. Or meals that I can use. Like, don't keep things in your mind because that's just gonna keep you more foggy. Put everything down in the best way that you can. You can put it all in one list, split it into different ones. I'm a big fan of using my notes app and then creating like folders and just like adding things there. So I'm like the grocery list and I just add things or things that I want to schedule to think about because I schedule thinking time because I don't keep anything in my mind because it's overwhelming. So then also you can use external reminders, right? Set alarms, label the alarms, right? If you get an alarm, you can be like, what is this? You can label it like, remember to, I don't know, go to the grocery store. I don't know, I couldn't think of anything better, but use external reminders. And again, trust that you're going to have a tough time like being aware and remembering. Then visual checklists, make things physical and put them somewhere that you're gonna see them when you need them, even if it's multiple ones about the same one. And then repeat information out loud. Right? So it might be hard for you to just like keep it in your mind and keep it like eh, a thought. It might be easier for you to put it into words, and that way you can kind of continue to say it and remember it in that way as well. So again, externalize your memory. Trust that you will not remember, and then act from that place. And then we have action, right? So you might struggle with this comes up in like your behaviors, like regulating your behaviors and I guess monitoring, like being aware of those behaviors. So maybe acting impulsively, like interrupting someone, right? You like already know what they mean when they're saying, but they're like not done talking. So you're like, yeah, I got it. Let me just like answer. And it can be tough to be aware of that or like be intuitive about that and regulate that. Struggling to stop something, right? So maybe you're doing something and it's hard for you to stop, even though you're like, I know that I have to like switch tasks and go to do something different. So it might be hard for that. And then overdoing things, right? So you do, I don't know, one task and then you do, I don't know, like a huge amount of that task that you're doing. Missing mistakes until later because in the moment, you're not aware. And then difficulty self-correcting, just like I mentioned, like that monitoring of yourself because it's hard for you to kind of be aware. So, what helps? You want to intentionally build pause points, right? Intentionally build moments where you can check in, right? Use timers to reassess, create pre-decided rules, add check-ins, add different signs, kind of like the last one, like externalize that, and slow down before responding. So starting to kind of slow down, monitoring and checking in intentionally, because you know that if you don't carve out these times or yeah, then it's going to be hard for you. So you want to add friction before that impulse. Okay? So those were the 6 types of executive dysfunction in ADHD. What I want you to do, this can be overwhelming. So do the handout. And what I want you to do is focus on one. One thing that you can do. Maybe one big one, for example, the one that you struggle with the most. Or it could be one little one, even the things that you might not struggle with as much, but something that is doable for you that you know you're going to be able to do it. So you want to set yourself up for success, right? Again, this can be predictable if you start to get to know yourself and kind of start to notice how that comes up for you in your day to day. So start working with you and getting to know you. Um, in order for you to be able to apply these actions instead of being hard on yourself. Alrighty, I'll see you in the next video.